A dream holiday turned into a nightmare. Pete Helmore was visiting Disneyland in France when the country was put on lockdown. He joins me now. Pete, having Disneyland to yourself would normally be a good thing, but not in this case.
Yeah, so we flew out on the Wednesday. As we landed Wednesday night, the event we were going to got cancelled literally as we touched down in France, which was great. Thursday and Friday, parks were empty. You know, you're talking 10, 20 people in a park where you're usually talking 10,000. It was pretty weird and pretty eerie as well.
So, you know, Disneyland's supposed to be the place of dreams. Was it fun still, even though it didn't have that atmosphere?
Yeah, so it was fun, but weird because there was no one around and it felt like you almost shouldn't be there. It felt like you're broken in or something. The cast members were doing their best to try and make your experience the land of dreams, but I did feel for them. You could see how stressed they were all. Disney have put quite strong regulations and rules in across the park, so every shop now has a member of staff controlling who's going in, who's coming out, and you could tell it was just, the end of the week, you could tell enough was enough for those guys. In Disney itself, shops were limited to 100 people. At the end of the day, they were limited to 10, 20 people at a time, which for a massive shop is crazy. We went out to the local shopping centre, which is a bit like Cabot. And, this place is huge with lots of shops, and shops are shut, shops are limited in staff numbers, people wearing masks everywhere. If England goes that way, as it looks like it's going to, it's going to be a quite surreal experience for everyone else. Walking into Bristol and seeing every single shop shut, for example, is a very weird experience.
And what information did you have while you were there? How are you following the story as it developed and eventually you found out that France was going into lockdown?
Well, that's a good point. So one thing about England is I think we're quite good at getting information out. In France, it was quite a struggle to, there was the French media were reporting different things. Some people were reporting that Disney, for example, was shut whilst we were there. It wasn't shut, it was open. Media was reporting several different things. And there wasn't really no one knew anything. Even in the shopping centres, you asked the information people, that they were unsure. All the shops were doing their own thing. Government officials at the airport didn't know. For example, our flight was early. The airport staff said, no, it's on time. And then the EasyJet staff from the UK got there and said, we need to go right now. It was all a bit confusing. It almost felt like, you were running for the border.
So what might have started off as quite a nice holiday turned very quickly.
Yeah, so, it was fun and it was an experience, not one I would advise anyone to do again. And the last day there was very much like, we drove to the airport, which was in itself, dropping off a car, the guy wouldn't come close to you. I had to sign something, which he left and then came, and which was weird. The airport was like, all the shops are shut. Everyone was very distancing themselves from each other. The staff on the airplane were great, but it was like, we need to get out of France and we need to get out of it now, it felt like.
So did you know much about the developing situation across Europe when you initially travelled? You mentioned you touched down and it was all fine to begin with, but your event was soon cancelled. Yeah,
so when we left on Wednesday evening, and it was developing then and it was okay. It was the UK at that stage were halfway through this process we're seeing at the moment, and it was okay and nothing was crazy. France was at that point not social distancing, but it was, advising people to go careful. When we landed, we got a notification about the event being cancelled very last minute, which is also the same throughout the week. Friday, 11 o'clock at night, we got told the park was getting shut that night and it won't open again now until whenever it's going to open again. We wouldn't have gone if we knew what was going to happen happened. We went because it seemed, okay. France was saying it's still business as usual. People at that point were still going to work and school, and pubs and shops and so on were still open. It was only when we were there it got locked down.
And it's not a holiday to Disneyland that you cancel lightly, is it? It's it's not a weekend in Benidorm, is it?
No, it's, one, the cost, but two, we were going for a special event, and if we didn't want to cancel to then the event to still go on, which was a bit of a tricky situation. But also at that point, as was still kind of now, we wouldn't have got any money back if we had cancelled. So it was that moment: do we go and risk a bad experience, or do we not go and lose a few £100?
There we go. I think that is the question that a lot of travellers have faced. Some haven't been so lucky as you to get back without any trouble. What would this, I guess, teach you for future dream trips that you're going to be booking?
I think we're all good at saving money. When we book holidays, you never pay that extra £20 to cancel it at 12 hours notice. I don't anyway. I'm not paying that. But actually, if we had paid a little bit extra, we could have cancelled and saved a few £100 and not had to go through that experience in hindsight. So my advice to everyone / me in the future would just be, when you're booking far ahead, maybe consider booking things with cancellation options, so you can cancel and get out of there without having to worry about, I'm going to lose X amount of money.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have learned that lesson over the recent period. Pete Helmore, thank you very much for talking to us today.